مساء الخير جميعا.
Good afternoon, everybody. We will start our session. Thanks for being here. I am Raed Al-Sharif, the Regional Director for the MENA region in SEGDI Foundation, which is a non-profit Canadian foundation that is concerned with digital rights and digital security worldwide. Through working in the MENA region during the last 7 years, I had the honor, actually, and I am really proud to have worked with a number of effective and active partners. I am really happy to be the moderator of today's session, despite the fact that I was not supposed to be the moderator or the facilitator till a week ago when our colleague Basant, whom we really send our best to, couldn't make it. Nevertheless, I am really proud to be with real amazing female leaders and activists on the front lines, not only for raising awareness regarding digital violence against women in the Arab region, but also to fight this phenomenon of violence in an amazing manner. So I am really happy to be with you today. Before starting, I'd like to draw your attention to something important. Actually, the organization of this session that focuses on Arab community-based initiatives and institutions under the leadership of active and effective women has not been done by chance. It was intended, deliberate, for a number of reasons. The first one is, of course, respect and appreciation for community leaders whose work in the previous years in fighting digital violence against women had an impact in their countries and in the Arab region as well. And the second objective, which is like an open invitation to all female colleagues in this conference and those who hear us to take the lead by themselves. Because now, throughout this session and throughout the discussions, you can see why does it make a difference, like to have women leadership led by a woman makes the difference in a solution and in like such an community epidemic when it comes to digital violence against women. I'm not going to introduce them because they are more than well known, and I'll give them the chance to introduce themselves by themselves. Nevertheless, now we have female leaders from Egypt and Jordan, and I will start with the journalist Isra Mahadin, who is the founder and the director of Al-Karak Castle Center for Training and Research. And next to her is the dear journalist Rania Al-Saraira, who is also, in addition to being a journalist, she is a social activist in a number of fields. Next to her is my colleague Asma Fathi, who is also the founder and the executive director for the initiative, now a female association, and we'll talk about that, Jamiyat Mu'annath Salim. So we'll start with you, Rania, if you allow. Do you have a mic? Rania, the network to combat digital violence against female journalists in Jordan. What was the challenge and what was the need to establish such a network? May you please talk to us about that? And what is even more important, what do you think has this network managed to achieve considering her young age, its young age? Well, thank you, Dr. Raed. I'd like to thank Reach for giving me this opportunity. I am Rania Al-Saraira, and as Dr. Raed mentioned, I'm the coordinator of the Jordanian Network to Combat Digital Violence Against Female Journalists in Jordan. We were established in 2022, the establishment of which came as a result of efforts exerted by some female journalists, and I was one of them. Actually, we started by taking part in a training led by SEGDIF at that time, whereby a number of female activists and journalists were trained on everything related to digital violence. And at that time, we asked ourselves a question. It was like something new, something that was not raised in the Jordanian media. And we asked us as female journalists, do we suffer from digital violence or not? And in order to be realistic or objective in terms of giving the answers, we conducted some sort of a survey. That survey targeted 201 female journalists working in Jordan, and the primary result of that survey indicated that 54.2% of female Jordanian journalists indicated that they suffered or faced some sort of violence, and this percentage was a bit attractive, a bit flashy, because the majority of us thought that no, we do not suffer from digital violence as female journalists in Jordan. And the other idea was that when we were distributing the questionnaire or the survey form amongst female journalists, they were wondering, what does digital violence mean? Even the idea or the concept of digital violence was not clear to many of the female colleagues. And this made us think of something else. How may we provide a safe environment for female journalists during performing the work? And on the other hand, how can we teach them how to be digitally safe? Actually, the first recommendation given by female colleagues, and I always like to talk about this idea, having this network as a network or having this coalition was based on a demand made by female journalists. The idea was that a group of female journalists, and we started as 80 journalists, and now we are 304 female journalists working in Jordan. The main idea there was that we need a venue not to share our experiences in terms of digital violence that we may suffer from. The main idea was that we want a safe space in which we can share all our concerns related to journalism and link this to digital journalism. And many female journalists, some of them are here. I would like to thank them a lot for the cooperation that they presented, like two colleagues, one with 4 years experience, another one with 20 years experience, and still they support each other. And I believe solidarity is one of the main ideas that we need to talk about. Also, the idea of reporting, how some female journalists, some of them, when we started at first, they thought that this is unserious. This is something normal. So what if you were subject to digital violence? Nevertheless, reporting this violence and sharing experiences and stories amongst female journalists. Last year, or almost like 1 year and a half ago, we collected around 53 different testimonies by female journalists working in Jordanian and non-Jordanian media platform, yet located in Jordan. 53 journalistic testimonies were shocking for me as Rania, because some journalists had to leave their working place. I won't say they were forced to do that, but by the end of the day, they reached a conclusion that being subject to such digital violence made them go behind the scenes, willing to go behind the scenes. And 3 journalists quit the whole field, the whole profession, because they were subject to digital violence. And this made us raise this to the table of discussion domestically in a very serious way. I don't know if I can say more. Well, we'll get back to that. Thanks a lot, Rania. Rania, the network reached more than 300 female journalists, and over the last 2 years, you had effective activities at the level of community lobbying. One might wonder, why have you held a session just to show female leaders in feminine associations? In your belief, the work done by the female members in this network during the last 2 years, their writings on digital violence, do you think this had created any impact on community movements or lobbying or at level of institutions, be them governmental or non? Do you believe that the network had a role in that?
Actually, that was accumulative. When our work of these journals start, we had to convince them that they would exchange this conversation and this dialogue. Are we subject to e-violence or report to digital violence. When you get a comment via social media on a post that I've written, is this classified as digital violence? Yeah, we had to convince ourselves that this is it. The other thing that we've always forgotten is that why it's females and not males. Also, males are subject to digital violence, and the conclusion was that we're all subject to that. But what's more severe is over on women. The way that it's about her shape, about her looks, about her honor, so-called honors. So that's why it was a bit sensitive. The main idea was that to open up this discussion and then we were supported by some Jordanian activists who's worked on this file, like Qalat al-Karak or al-Karak Castle, and also to share these narratives and these stories with the community was very important. Activists are also subject to such a digital violence. Politicians, advocates, I feel that networking campaigns, raising awareness campaigns on social media were very important. They've always supported us in it and encouraged us to share these stories. For instance, stories for those who are nominated to elections, parliamentarians and others have reported some violent acts that they've been subject to. I would like also to add that working together with colleagues made us think of other things that might have an impact. It's not only about digital violence. For instance, I think in 2023, the goal of the law of cyber crime was amended, and there was this big discussion about these amendments have limited the freedom of media. So now we learn more. We are more aware. We need to have a network who would adopt this initiative to start with us. Are we to conduct a study about how are we affected? And so they've conducted this study. Then it was titled the implications of the amendment of the cybercrime law on female journalists in Jordan. And the same question was always the same: why female journalists and not male journalists? As main findings of this study, and maybe lawyers know about this more, that many of the female colleagues have withdrawn themselves from social media, and they stopped posting their posts due to this law. So what I want to say is that the efforts were always disseminated in this regard. Thank you, Rania. Thank you. And the network plays a role in raising our awareness and combating digital violence. I know that there should be a safe space for journalists, and this is and let's go to Egypt now. And Asma, it's a success story, and which I really appreciate. Muannat Salem was born, and it's an initiative that was created based on the suffering that freelance female journalists endure, and they endure the economic, social suffering. So Muannat Salem, it's a civil society organization that is officially registered in Egypt. Can you tell us more about this, the journey, about how the activity of Muannat Salem started to tackle the issue of digital violence, and how did it form its ID, its profile? Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, Arij, for this invitation. It's a long journey. It's a complex one. I'll start with you. How did we come up with this platform or initiative? We, independent and freelance female journalists, we were working all the time on advocating women's cases and our work, and they always try to win cases that promote women. But at one point, we thought of ourselves that we advocate the rights of women, but what about us journalists? All the time there's this idea that journalists can make it. They're there, and my colleague Rania Saraira, while she was talking, I saw the common things that we are subject to, the violations that we're subject to, not only in Jordan and in Egypt, everywhere. So we've seen that we need to share our experience. Let's approach the journalists union because it's a gender issue, and we have different spaces to talk about. So I remember my colleague who was member of the council said, actually, this is interrogative thing, and the union does not discriminate between males and females. Yes, however, we were feeling this discrimination. We were feeling it in the editorial rooms. So that's why we decided to launch this campaign that was titled like female journalists. What do they need? And actually, in reality, we were shocked because we're only seen as in the positive role, but they're many times set aside, and they're excluded. And we can, of course, look on decision-making positions in media and check the percentage can compare the percentage of males versus females. Female journalists always say that or claim that they cannot. Well, I am one, and I prove that I can do. I'm journalist, and I'm female journalist, and I can write. I can work in night shift. And I'm a mom, and I have children. I can do everything. So it's become a bigger burden on these female journalists because they had to prove that they can do it, and because there was this other force that would prove that they cannot do it. So this is the dilemma that we went into. So we, as journalists we need to think together. We thought of this initiative, and actually my colleagues in Muannat Salem started to work all by themselves from their own time. And they funded this all by themselves. They started to approach other journalists in editorial rooms. So we can all launch the campaigns, and our main goal was to speak up about ourselves. We're representing ourselves. We are writing our own testimonies. So that's the first moment we launched our campaign. We knew what is it that we needed from the union, and this is where we thought of others and tackle the issue of motherhood, and all the time while talking about the digital violence. It's very violent that women, and it's really bad that she would be named or given names because she's a mother and or so on, and she cannot do it. And it's become as a stigma that she's a woman. So we were trained on how to tackle these issues, motherhood, and then the gap in wages because women get less salaries, and then the issues of entering the journalists association. So many of the journalists, they don't sign their contracts except if they're members of this council, and for many reasons also. Many challenges because she's a mom, she's married, she has children. So that's why she's prohibited to get many benefits. And then as for the digital violence, that's another issue. It's as if it's part of the nature of this profession. And we who work on these files, when we were talking with our colleagues, we were discussing this issue as just sessions, the conversational issues. And we started to talk up and we started to discover things during these conversations that we are facing the same violations, same type of violations that we've seen. And we started to assess our experience. How are we as individuals? How were we impacted by this thing, and we have withdrawn from many things that and because of this cyber or digital violence that we've been subject to without even feeling it or seeing it in a tangible way. So it was because it's usually considered as a part of the work or the nature of the work, but no, that's not the truth. But and if we've taken any action against any resource, we would be condemned. So we needed to always to be nice to the resources. We need to bring in advertisements. We need to over and of course it's very normal that you get threatened, and or when we post something about on a website and we start get cursed, this is normal. That this means that you've made it, you're succeeding. And a colleague said that she posted an article about marital rape, but they started getting calls. The males in her family started getting threat calls from the males in her family started getting threat calls and curses, and many of them stopped writing because that was a disgrace for their families, and they knew that that's a headache. So did we stop there? Do we stop there? Shall we withdraw? No. And many of them, and when we launched our first media about digital security, and this is why we link this to how can we how many of them were stopped from practicing their work because they were 75 women said that they were subject to violence, and accordingly the whole a big amount of them were against them, and 330 testimonies were of course published, and other testimonies were taken for research purposes. So they said that the digital violences that they've been subject to made them withdraw. Why? So they were withdrawn from this the whole space, digital space. They felt that they were their families started getting subject to violence. The fathers, the husbands started to treat them differently. So they were under other pressures. We have expat journalists who cannot talk. A big number of them cannot really report. So can they really report in an expanded way? No. And we've conducted a study before this study about the social and professional impact that female journalists were subject to. They said that they don't report, and part of the reason why is the stigma in the media arena and space. So they don't want to be stigmatized among their colleagues. So that's this is something I cannot say that I can work freely and strongly in any other arena because I'm stigmatized. So also media outlets don't adopt this issue, and of course when it's more complex are the freelancers and so on. They don't have the legal support and union support. But what's worse is that they don't report, because if they support, they would be condemned or convicted. Now, this journey has made us think of we need to study. We looked for research papers, and actually we could not find the numbers or the indicators, the strong indicators that would make us work strongly on this file. And so we could have launched a poll or a survey, but we thought, no, let's work in a qualitative way. And we've conducted 6 in-depth sessions with 12 or to 15 female journalists who are freelancers, because we are aware that what a freelancer would be subject to. and with the bigger complications. So we conducted these sessions with female journalists from unions and freelancers, and so that they would feel that they are supported. And then we saw the assistance of experts. And we also approached media outlets where we felt that they also have absence of protection means, even legal protection. And we're talking about the protection of civil servant working in such agencies. And we met chiefs of editors and so on, and asked them what is it, how do they see and perceive digital violence. Some said, is there a digital violence? How do you identify it? Is it the harassment? And this is one of the sample. They always think that it's sexual harassment or assault. That's the thing. That's the most that they would think of. This is how they identify digital violence. And then the types of violence. How are they? Bullying, cyberbullying, threats. And last thing in that list was sexual harassment, which shows that this index means that the pattern or trend of violations that is suffered by these women is based on her work, on her profession. It's not sexual harassment. I'm done. So this is it related to this story and the difference. And what's here, I'm going to conclude that violations that female journalists face are different than what other journalists face, because these violations are based on her gender. Thank you, and sorry for taking long. رانيا and Asma. Isra, I need you to think for the next round. What is the main accomplishment of this network in Jordan and Mona Salim in Egypt as a feminist organization that faces digital violence? Asma is the journalist, human rights activist. I have many questions to you, since Al-Karak Castle is different than Muanna Salim, and different than the Al-Shabaka. It's a social community based organization. You as a center under your leadership, and in less than 7 years, and I'm not saying this, by the way, that's not me. It's many experts have proved this, that this center is considered one of those places or shelters, we can say, the only shelters that do care about digital violence, and they work with the different types of women, especially in districts and governorates that are considered marginalized. My first question to you: if you were asked to summarize or give a briefing about your experience as a center in dealing with women regarding digital violence under your leadership and with your team, how can you summarize this whole experience, and how do you justify that the big trust that women in most governorates give to you as a safe space to them, safe shelter? And I was in Jordan in October, and we had a meeting. This meeting was under the auspices of many, and women came over from different governorates. They were calling her name Isra and Isra. So this trust is very important. And you, as a leader, tell us more about this experience. Good evening. Thank you very much, Dr. Aida Narij, for this hosting. Actually, this trust stemmed from the way we dealt with people. We approach them on the basis of how they think. We are closer to their way of thinking. As for Qalat Al-Karak Center, when I thought of founding it, I thought I should mix between my expertise as an attorney or a lawyer and the experience that I've gained from civil society organizations. The whole idea of establishing such a center that is keen about the empowerment of women from all sectors, political partnership, economic partnership, all these issues should be accompanied by studies, by consultations, and in-depth studies based on numbers. Because this denial thing that we have in everything for women is prevailing. There's violence against women. There's always someone who would come up and say, no, no digital violence, nothing against women. So when we, and through our direct work with women in all governorates and all sectors, as you mentioned, regarding, for instance, elected women, how are we raise their capacities? Through our discussions with them, we were able to identify the magnitude of problems they face. So our whole focus was to work with women about violence during the election phase that they're subject to, which is in any way it's minimal. We worked also in details about the violence during elections, and as you all know, the digital violence would accompany. It's one type of political violence against women, which makes her wants to throw her out of this public sphere. When we discussed elections violence, it was based on the need that women had endured, and then it was branched into another form when we derived and worked on the digital violence, its types, its shapes, that is targeting women in political fields, economic fields. That was based on a need. And this is where we were able to gain their trust in this regard. And for sure, this is the best opportunity that I really appreciate our partnership with women since 2017. We worked them on the digital safety, digital security, and this continued work with the sector organization. It's not only about electoral violence, but the work had started to work through this organization. So when we are able to reach out to 7,000, 8,000 women in the southern governorates, Tafila, Karak, and Aqaba, these are they're far from Amman, the capital. That's why they have less opportunities in getting services and trainings and awareness raising. We were able to get to this big number through our gradual work, and starting with one category to another. We started with housewives who didn't have any political engagement. And then we moved on to another with elected women. And we found out that the more a woman is more known in the public sphere, is more subject to violence in all shapes, including digital violence. And then we started to approach those who desire or would want to nominate herself. So we thought we need to raise her capacities on how to face such issues, what to do when she's subject to cyber or digital violence, and to be able to tackle it. And this is when we started to move on to raising awareness to those cases who are referred. So we have a hotline, we provide consultations, and we're very proud that this file of Qalat Al-Karak and digital safety and digital violence, this is us. We're the address for this. And women approach us for legal aid, for psychological aid, and many women are subject to different types of digital violence that they don't want to complain, to report, but they do need some psychological support, to be listened to be mentored. I tried as much as possible to link where did this all stem from? And that is back to your question. We gained this trust because we touched the hearts of people,
and their needs. And many cases of violence, regretfully, as Rania has said, people won't recognize and they won't acknowledge it as a violence or as a violation. And I insist every time I talk about this issue, if digital violence is a reflection of the violence we face it throughout our lives. But it's now more framed. It's behind a screen. It's because if it's not investigated, one would not know who is behind it. So it's a reflection of the culture of the society that accepts violence against women and accepts that the victim is to be blamed and accepts that you chose the way to be in the public, so you have to pay for that. That's a token for it. But why do I have to have one of these options and select it? Thank you. I just want to, Dr. Dahoud, we will take the questions later on, please. Just let me continue with Isra, and then we will go back to Q&A. Throughout our work in digital violence throughout the Arab world, we found out that reporting and gaining trust between the survivor and victim and organizations was shaky, and many organizations provided psychosocial support, but the reporting was minimal. And we always had like digital clinic to train or to lead a woman or a trainer. And imagine with from each session, more than one report would be submitted by women or girls would whisper to the trainer, "I'd like to tell you something. I'm facing an issue." So that's the whole goal. How can a feminist organization led by a feminist leadership it can help in the reporting process? But in the 7,000 women in Karaka, Tafil, Amman, and Aqaba, I remember when we worked with Isra and her team, we were surprised, and I was very happy to learn that her colleagues, female colleagues, used to go to their houses and have coffee with them, get their neighbors, discuss with them digital violence. That was the most prominent means that they've used, and so if this is done by experts, it won't work out. And I'm sorry to say this, and I'm responsible for what I say. That's why I would like to ask if this network that Rania had established by men, I don't know if they would follow the same approach or not. Just about this the trust. So you visited them at homes, right? Yeah, at the beginning of the word about digital violence, it was a vague concept. What is meant by digital violence? What do you mean? And despite what was done previously, still there's always this need for awareness, raising awareness of digital violence, the digital safety. So the team used to select the simplest means to convey the message to the ladies. They would conduct not only the sessions, they would ask them. So it's like one category would ask from another. We've received many requests from preachers who would go home, who would give religious lessons. They asked us to get some trainings regarding digital safety in order to convey it to others. So when this is a request from the community itself, this is where it has a bigger impact, where it's perceived better. And when there are younger females from the same area, it's closer even to their heart. The language they use, the way they deal with them, when they know that this lady is related to that person, it's more they have this more accepting feeling. And you're right. You need to convince them about the services that we're here to support you, and that's what the team has done during the lockdown. we weren't allowed to mix with people. So they started gathering these and collecting these groups online and started giving these sessions online. And in Madaba, more than one society has asked us to give them online sessions. And since so during the lockdown 5 years ago until now, teachers used to use the computer, then to give the lessons online. That's where they also trained women and teachers who would give online classes to help them in tackling the digital security thing.
Rania, I'll move to you with a very short and quick question. In 1 minute, what is the biggest achievement that your network has created and that you are so proud of until this moment, along with your colleagues in the network? Well, in 1 minute, when you raised this question, I thought of so many things. I'm not going to talk about what we do on a daily basis, such as training and so on and so forth. But I believe that our biggest achievement is that this network has become a safe reference for this, for digital violence. Having male and female colleagues and even civil society organizations, if they want to talk about digital violence against journalists, and when they refer back to our network, this is a great achievement for us. And another achievement is that over the last years, the network handled 10 complaints from female journalists complaining. I'd like to thank the cybersecurity unit for responding to our cases. Okay, Asma, I would like to ask you something. Yesterday, I had a meeting with Asma, and we talked about an amazing initiative that is in the process of being created. Mu'annath Salim in Egypt, Network in Jordan, Qal'at Al-Karak Center also in Jordan. Yet yesterday we talked about a regional activity. Feminine organizations from 7 countries are going to combine together and they will have an initiative together. May you please tell us about the significance of being regional at the same time, feminine initiatives under feminine leadership? All leaders are females. 2 minutes, please, because I need to get back to Isra for the last word, and then we'll go to the audience. Okay, from local to general. Domestically, in the digital violence file, we received some local institutions requesting some trainings on digital safety. We also received domestic initiatives indicating that we need to work as groups. I was here in Jordan in a regional meeting, and I was raising the idea of this and cases mentioned by female journalists against their colleagues, for example. So there was a colleague from Morocco who attended the meeting and said, what you've just described exactly happens in Morocco. So how about working on something common between Morocco and Egypt? After that, after a week, the colleague said, I am really excited that a third institution in Jordan is excited to join us. And I was talking to a friend from Syria, and I found that the common element amongst all these women is that the same pattern we're talking about, maybe in different styles due to country differences. However, it is taking place over and over again in all countries. So we became 7 countries: Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, Syria, Palestine, Sudan, and Tunisia. The 7 countries felt that digital violence in the 7 countries cross-cuts in so many areas. And also, had we worked together and rendered one experience or one knowledge, or even if we share different experiences by women from the different 7 countries who could be next year, the number could be higher. However, we'll be able to say one thing in one voice, in a feminine voice, regarding the impact of digital violations against women and aggressions against women, and how this makes women, and this is a connection between us and different countries, how this makes women withdraw from digital sphere and working sphere as well, be us lawyers or journalists and so on and so forth. So 7 countries, 7 women from 7 countries decided to use one single voice against digital aggressions against women in their countries. Thank you. Actually, the organizers are not being fair with us. We have 12 minutes, not 7. Okay, I want 30 seconds from every colleague. I'll start with Ms. Isra. As a female leader, of a community institution in 30 seconds. We said that this session calls upon other lady colleagues to be leaders. So, Isra, your advice in 30 seconds, considering your work and your challenges, what piece of advice do you offer to other colleagues who are willing to establish institutions or associations? Please. Okay, what I want to say in 30 seconds is that don't think it's that easy. It is really difficult. Nevertheless, when you start reaping fruits of success, you start feeling that this file is linked to you or to your institution. This feeling by itself makes everything seem invisible. Nevertheless, there are challenges. You need to prepare yourselves to the fact that there are lots of challenges. I'm not scaring. I don't want to scare you, but you need to keep in mind that it's not a piece of cake. It is challenging. Nevertheless, success deserves all the effort. Thank you. Rania, in 30 seconds. I'd like to second Ms. Isra in her call out. And when you raised this question, I had the same idea. The road is not that paved. It's bumpy and complicated. Nevertheless, the idea of solidarity, to have all those working on this cause, joining efforts together is something really important. In addition to sharing challenges, stories, and experiences is something of significance. Okay, 30 seconds, Asma. In addition to what's been given by my colleagues, I would like to say that women do have a strong will and they can accomplish a lot. There is a 2-year journey for journalists in Egypt who decided to pay from their own pockets over 2 years to accomplish what they wanted and to express and expose the violations that they have suffered from. So the people of the cause do know more about this cause. Whether I'm talking about something related to rights or journalism, I believe that the stakeholders themselves, they can lead their cause in a better way. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. I invite you all to talk to Rania, Asma, and Isra. Okay, if you want to speak, please stand in front of the mic. Dr. David Kotab was the first to raise his hand. We still have 10 minutes, not 5 minutes, dear organizers. Okay. We talked a lot about the role of women when it comes to awareness raising. Nevertheless, there is something missing in the discussion. Who scares off or pushes off men? I won't say harassers in particular, but okay, I have a point that I would like to mention. From an investigative report I worked on, most of the men who harass or who bully women use or resort to doing that anonymously. They do not use their names. And sometimes, as for women, if someone says hi, she might be scared or concerned that he's going to bully her. This is why she blocks him immediately. So my point is that we don't have a number, a hotline that we can contact in such cases. I hope that one lady will be courageous enough to allow this person to talk to her in order to figure out what his real intentions are, and then we'll take legal actions accordingly. Just like we put a hidden camera in order to know who the perpetrator is. So we need to find a way to deter women from doing that. When someone beats his wife, you can tell who did the beating. Nevertheless, when there's bullying, bullying is usually anonymous. So it would be difficult to have real deterrence against men unless we really figure them out. So we need to find a way to find out who are these people. Okay, we'll take 3 to 4 interventions, and then I'll ask each of my colleagues to respond in 1 minute. Thanks to the honorable guests of this panel, Dr. Rawan Mahdi, a doctor in politics. Okay, I will touch quickly about the points you mentioned. Regardless of how journalists are different in public or private media institutions, except for the insurance, we have no protection system. This is the public system, the government system. Also, differences in wages in private sectors. This does not happen because wages have certain categories. So female journalists wouldn't be injustice in this regard. Me, as a journalist, I suffered from bullying. I suffered from so many things. It's a long journey. Allow me to tell you that there is nothing wrong with the female journalists themselves. However, female journalists are subject to this because this comes from the family itself. The mother, she is the one who bullies other women. You are saying, like a female journalist, when you have a dialogue or an interview, when you are really happy about your achievements, your female colleague will start criticizing. What were you dressed? How you were dressed up? What did you say, etc. So female journalists bully each other before start talking about the community. So I'm afraid that we need to change how women perceive other women, first of all. Thank you. Briefly, please. Hello, I'm Mariam Yaghi, coordinator of editing in Sharika and a member in female organization. Actually, female organization is a pioneering organization in combating violence against women, particularly in terms of advocating this case for combating digital violence against women. Female organization has launched a number of campaigns in this regard. A few years ago, they started a campaign called The Screen Alone Won't Protect. And actually, this campaign came as a result of a number of consultations and sessions with a group of legal persons and lawyers. And we launched a discussion on that with stakeholders. And we needed 10 MPs, 10 members from the parliament in Lebanon to be able to pass a draft law on the consultations that will help us launch this campaign, because we wanted to launch, along with the campaign, we wanted to launch a draft law to be passed by the parliament. And this shows the significance of the role of female networks that do combat digital violence against women. Mr. Asma, instead of 7, now you are 8 countries. It is our pleasure to cooperate at the level of female journalists or at the level of networking regarding this kind of initiatives, so that we will definitely talk about these initiatives and these efforts in a wider scope, a wider legal scope, because whenever these discussions turn into sources or decision-making positions, then they become more legal and will become more effective and fruitful. Thank you. Thanks. Now 8 initiatives. Let's make them 10 before we end the session. Quickly, please, because we have 2 more interventions. Okay, when it got to a man, you wanted me to... you need to be grateful that I have even allowed you to speak. Hello, I am Ammar Al-Hilali. I'm a journalist from Iraq. I run an institution whose 60% of its workers are females. I am really worried that when I reached Jordan and I found all of the colleagues talking about harassment and digital violence and so on and so forth. Ms. Rania, this is a huge number. 53 testimonies, this is a huge number. I don't know what is happening in Jordan. Nevertheless, no problem. We need to learn from these experiences. What have you done? You mentioned that some women moved from in front of the screen to the back of the screen. So where is your role as an important network that observed and wrote and communicated with organizations? However, you have not mentioned success stories for those who suffered from such violations. 2 days ago, we talked to Syrian journalists when they were the panelists here. Tomorrow is the first anniversary for the falling of the Assad regime. We, as Iraqi journalists, we said that we are willing to share our experiences with you. So we need Jordan, that has huge numbers in terms of violations committed against women. We need to learn about your experiences so that we learn from them. And to spare time, Ms. Isra, how can you find those who don't complain? You said that there are women who do not complain. How do you find such women? Also, how can we be able to identify those who were subject to this kind of violations? Thank you. Okay, we have 3 minutes left, and I need to give the chance to my colleagues quickly, please. Hello, I'm Hiba Abd Al-Qadir from Arta Radio Syria. I like to learn from experiences of Jordan and Egypt. Were there any deterring laws for the attack against female journalists? Usually we witness attacks and awareness raising amongst female journalists, yet unless there are laws, unless there is deterrence against the people who commit such attacks, this won't stop. Another thing I would like to ask to the panelists, I heard a lot about your achievements. However, what is the biggest challenge that you've been through as institutions led by women, and how have you faced that challenge? Thank you. Thanks. We have 3 minutes, Isra, Rania, and please, 45 seconds this time, not 30. Respond to either part because they are threatening us to finish. Okay, quickly, I'd like to respond to the colleague who said that female journalists bully other female journalists. This is the same saying that gets circulated, that the woman is the main enemy of the other woman. Will allow me, my friend, to say that this is so inaccurate, because the woman, when she bullies the other woman, or if she doesn't support her, this woman is born in this community. She was raised up in a culture that fostered that in herself. And I don't think that men are more supportive to women than women. Okay, Rania, in 45 seconds, I'd like to tell you that yesterday we all saw leakages that happened to the previous president and the media advisor. Regardless of our political affiliations, however, I would like to talk about the comments. They started talking about his political stances and what did he do. But when it came to the advisor, who was a female, everything was related to honor, relations, and affairs, and so on and so forth. So this gives us an indication. How do we look at digital violence when the victim is a male or when the victim is a female? It is more dangerous and more painful and more sensitive when it comes against women. I would like to talk about challenges that do face us. I agree with Ms. Hiba regarding what you said. Laws are very important. And in Jordan, we have a system of legislations that are important when it comes to combating digital violence. However, okay, thank you. Okay, Asma, 45 seconds. Okay, quickly related to the part related to public employees. They are protected by the laws for state employees, not journalists. As for rights, journalists whom we met with said that, and the gap in equal wages is there. If I don't have it in my institution, this doesn't mean it does not exist. And also, the man with authority or power will impose his ideas. Our colleagues, our male colleagues, do support female colleagues. They come to Mu'annat Salim and they support them. I'm afraid that those who bullied you, they have certain bad ideas in their mind. So, thank you. Okay, thanks. I will end with a word. Hello, I'm Otaf Arrodan. As for the success stories of women or journalists who are subject to electronic violence, we have success stories in Jordan when the journalist, regardless whether I agree or disagree with her, however, there was a video leaked, a highly sensitive one. She decided to face the audience and she said, she talked and she found support. Numbers in Jordan are high. Yes, I agree. Nevertheless, when we talk about the public sphere, these figures are still getting exposed, and there are legal actions, and institutions and journalists themselves, they need to decide to face, to encounter, in order to reduce the tendency of such a thing. Thanks a lot. I'll conclude quickly. I just want to say that it's been more than 7 years for me working directly with Ms. Isra, Ms. Rania, and Ms. Asma. And actually, the work they do is really amazing, not because I work with them. So I'm going to stand out of respect for all of them. Thanks a lot to the great work that you do, and thanks to all the ladies and female journalists. Thank you all.